All right, here goes. I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these stories, but here we are. My name's Mike, and this is my story about the biggest betrayal I've ever faced. My wife, Lisa, cheating on me with some guy who's supposed to be designing our space mining equipment. Yeah, space mining. It's as wild as it sounds, but that's what I do. I've always been into the whole cosmic harvesting thing. Think asteroid mining, resource extraction tech, that kind of sci-fi stuff. Lisa, on the other hand, was always the bitchy wife who pretended to care but was basically just doing her own thing behind my back. Honestly, looking back, I should have seen the signs, but I was so caught up in work and trusting her that I missed everything. We got married about 5 years ago, and at first everything seemed fine. Lisa was the typical glamorous wife, hot, confident, a little manipulative sometimes, but I thought she genuinely loved me. She was charming, a little bitchy, but I liked that about her. She could be sweet, but she had this way of turning cold if she didn't get what she wanted. I thought I knew her pretty well, but over the last 6 months something changed. She started acting weird, canceling plans last minute, lying about where she was going and avoiding my questions like crazy. I remember one night I came home unexpectedly early from the lab, and I caught her sneaking out of the bedroom with her phone in hand, but she froze when I walked in. That was odd. I asked her what she was up to, and she just gave me that don't ask, don't tell smile that made my stomach turn. Then there were the little things, her phone buzzing constantly, her being evasive about her whereabouts, and her smelling different sometimes, like perfume she didn't usually wear. I found a few suspicious texts, but I couldn't make sense of them. Nothing explicit, just vague enough to be confusing. Still, I trusted her, or at least I told myself I did. Until one day I decided to check her emails. It wasn't exactly a proud moment, but something in me just felt off. And what I found, I wish I hadn't. It was a string of messages between her and some guy named Derek. They weren't just friendly chats, they were flirty as hell, talking about meeting up, resource extraction tech, and a bunch of other code that made no sense at first. But then I realized not only was she cheating, but the way she was talking about this guy, the way they exchanged these secret messages, it was all so calculated. She was covering her tracks, but I had already caught her. The thing is, I knew. I knew it was more than just some affair. It was about her and this Derek guy, how they had some kind of resource extraction tech that was really just code for their little space simulation chamber encounters. It's all part of our cosmic harvesting project, how we pretend to mine asteroid resources, but it's really about sneaking around, doing things we shouldn't. She must have met him during one of her supposed business trips, but I guess she found someone who shared her twisted interests. I started piecing it all together, her coldness, her evasiveness, the secret phone calls. And then I remembered the nights she'd go out late, the strange hours she'd keep, and I knew she had been lying to me for months. Getting the evidence was a shock, but it hit me hard. I felt like my world was crumbling. I never thought she'd cheat, especially with someone involved in our work, someone I trusted to help make our space tech dreams come true. It was like a punch in the gut, but worse. I wasn't angry just yet, I was numb. Because it wasn't just the betrayal, it was the feeling that I'd been played for a fool all this time. I started questioning everything, our marriage, her motives, my judgment. How could she lie to me about everything? How could she pretend to be the caring wife while secretly screwing this Derek guy? It was a lot to process, and that's where I stand now. I've got the dirty proof, and I'm trying to figure out what to do next. I know I need to confront her, but part of me is terrified of what she'll say or do when I do. I keep replaying everything I saw, every lie she told, every moment I missed. She's such a bitch about it, too. Lying, denying, trying to turn the situation around on me. But I know the truth, and I'm not going to let her keep hiding behind her manipulative tricks anymore. I want to get out, but I also want to make her pay for all the lies and betrayal. That's what's eating me up inside. How could she be so cruel, so selfish? I'll tell you what I decide to do next in the next part. After I found out, everything just spiraled. I couldn't focus at work, couldn't sleep, and honestly, I felt like I was living in some kind of bad dream. The betrayal cut deep, but what messed me up the most was how she tried to deny everything when I confronted her. I remember standing in the living room holding her phone, showing her the messages I'd uncovered. Her face was all fake surprise, like she hadn't been caught red-handed. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Mike, you're overreacting. That's nothing. Derek's just some guy I worked with. You're paranoid." Yeah, right. The way she said it with that smirk, I knew she was lying. She always had a way of twisting things around, making herself look the victim. I lost my temper then. I told her I wasn't stupid, that I saw everything. Her secret meetings, the late nights, the coded texts. She shrugged, trying to brush it off, saying she was just helping Derek with some resource extraction tech for the project. She kept talking about how innocent it all was, how I was blowing it out of proportion. But I knew better. I could see the lies in her eyes, the way she avoided my gaze, the way she kept trying to spin her story to make me look like the crazy one. That's when I realized how deep her deception went. She'd been lying to my face for months, maybe longer. I felt a surge of rage, but also this crushing sadness. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built, everything we stood for? We had plans, big plans about space mining, asteroid resource extraction, a future together. And she was out there screwing around, hiding her affair with some tech guy who she claimed was just a coworker. Honestly, I didn't even care about the affair anymore. I was more pissed about how she lied, how she played me for a fool. That betrayal felt like a punch to my chest, like my whole world was cracked open. I'd trusted her, I'd loved her, and she got off on sneaking around, pretending to be the perfect wife while screwing someone else. The worst part, she kept lying even after I showed her the evidence. She told me I was just jealous, that I was imagining things, that she loved me but was just trying to help Derek with his project, that she never cheated, never had sex with him. But I knew better. I could see it in her eyes. She enjoyed the thrill, the secret meetings, the lying. She was a master manipulator, and I was just a fool who never saw it coming. My mind kept racing, trying to piece together what I'd missed. The clues, the signs. I felt so stupid. I'd been so wrapped up in my work that I missed her slip-ups, her evasiveness, her flirting with Derek during those late nights. I finally snapped and told her she needed to pack her bags and leave. I couldn't live with a cheater, not after everything. And she, of course, threw a fit, calling me crazy, saying I was overreacting, that I didn't understand her, that I was jealous and insecure, that she was just helping Derek out, that it meant nothing. But I knew better. I knew she was lying, the look in her eyes, that fake innocence. She was trying to turn the tables to make me feel guilty for catching her. It was infuriating. But the thing that really got me was the way she dismissed it all like it was no big deal. Like cheating was just some game to her. She kept saying, "You're making a big deal out of nothing, Mike. I love you. This was just some stupid fling. It doesn't mean anything." Yeah, right. It meant everything to me. I felt like I was losing my mind. How could she be so cold, so dismissive? I wanted to scream at her, tell her how much she hurt me, but I just stood there, stunned, trying to process it all. I ended up telling her to leave, and she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I stood there in silence, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't want to rush into anything. I was furious, hurt, and betrayed all at once. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over everything, trying to understand how she could be so callous, so manipulative. I knew I had to think carefully about what my next move would be. I didn't trust her anymore, couldn't. She'd lied so much that I didn't know who she was anymore. And the worst part, I still loved her. Or maybe I thought I did, but that love was turning into something darker, something tainted by all the lies and betrayal. Next, I started plotting, trying to figure out how to get revenge, because I wasn't just going to let her walk away after all this. No way. I wanted her to suffer, to realize what she'd lost. But I also knew I had to be smart about it, not just lash out like an idiot. That's what I'll tell you about in the next part. After she left that night, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. My mind kept replaying everything, the betrayal, her smug looks, the lies she told. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting. The anger was bubbling up, but underneath it all was this deep, gnawing sense of hurt. I kept thinking about how she'd lied to my face, how she'd used me like some kind of tool in her game with Derek. It wasn't just the cheating, it was the way she manipulated everything, spun her web of lies, and acted like she was the victim when I confronted her. I knew I needed to do something, but I also knew I couldn't just storm in and accuse her again. That wouldn't help. I spent the next few days gathering my thoughts, watching her social media, paying attention to what she was doing, trying to figure out how deep this rabbit hole went. She tried to act normal, but I saw through it. She was on edge, snapping at me over small things, and I knew she was hiding something. I also started to dig into her phone logs, her emails, things I probably shouldn't have done, but I felt I had no choice. I needed to know if this was just a fling or something more serious. One afternoon, I followed her to a coffee shop downtown. She met Derek there. I watched from a distance as they sat in a corner, whispering and laughing. They looked cozy, really close. Derek had his arm casually draped on her chair, and she was leaning in, pretending to be interested in whatever he was saying. I felt like I'd been punched again, like I was watching my wife with another man and there was nothing I could do about it. I took a few shaky photos from across the street, just enough to confirm my suspicions. The proof was in the pudding. She was definitely cheating, and I was right to feel like a fool. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how I was going to confront her, what I was going to say. I decided I'd do it face to face. No more hiding, no more pretending I didn't know. I wanted her to look me in the eyes and tell me the truth. The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee, and waited for her to come back. When she finally did, I sat her down and laid everything out, her texts, her meetings, the photos. Her face went pale, then red with anger. She started screaming, calling me crazy, accusing me of invading her privacy, of being paranoid. But I didn't care anymore. I knew the truth and I wanted her to own up to it. She didn't deny it outright, at least not at first. Instead, she started with the typical bullshit, saying she was just helping Derek with some tech stuff, that it was all innocent. I snorted and told her I wasn't stupid. I'd seen enough to know this was more than just some business arrangement. That's when she turned bitchy, cutting me off and saying, "You're just jealous because Derek actually cares about me. You're too busy with your stupid space projects to notice what's really important." That was her favorite line, trying to make me feel guilty, like I was the asshole for catching her. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her she could lie all she wanted, but I had enough evidence to kick her out if she didn't tell me the truth. That's when she finally broke down a little, started crying, saying she was just experimenting, that Derek was the only one who understood her, and that I was terrible in bed anyway. That last part stung. I guess she thought I was so wrapped up in my work that I wouldn't notice how she was drifting away. But I did. I noticed everything, and now I saw how much she'd been playing me for months. That day, I decided enough was enough. I told her I was done with her lies, her cheating, her manipulations. I told her she needed to leave, and she started screaming again, calling me a control freak, saying I was ruining her life. But honestly, I didn't care. I was too numb from everything I just uncovered. I couldn't believe I had married someone so cold, so calculating. It felt like my entire world was crashing down around me. The thing is, I knew from that moment I had to get out of this marriage. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I also knew I wanted revenge, something to make her regret everything. I didn't want her to walk away unscathed. I wanted her to see that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. I figured out a plan, something subtle but effective. I started leaking some of her secrets, her lies, and her manipulation tactics to a few trusted friends, people who'd see through her masks. I also started digging into her contacts, her financials, looking for anything I could use against her if I needed to escalate. My goal was to make her realize she couldn't keep hiding behind her bitchy attitude and lies. I knew this wasn't going to be easy. I felt the weight of it all, anger, disappointment, betrayal. But I was determined to do what I had to do. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. That's what I'll tell you about next. The execution of my plan, how I started turning the tables on her, and what happened after she finally realized I was serious. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I threw myself into planning, trying to keep everything under control while secretly setting things in motion. I knew I couldn't confront her again directly without risking her disappearing or just denying everything. Instead, I decided to be strategic. I started by talking to a few people I trusted, some friends from work, a former colleague who knew about her manipulative streak. I told them snippets, just enough to plant seeds to make her realize I had evidence and that I wasn't going to be played anymore. That felt good, honestly. It was a small victory, but it was enough to keep me motivated. At the same time, I got hold of some of her financial and communication records. I found out she'd been funneling money into an account that I didn't recognize, probably her secret fund for Derek or whatever else she was hiding. I also discovered she'd been deleting messages, but I was clever enough to recover some of them from backups. Seeing her scheming behind my back made my blood boil. It was like I was watching her build her web of lies, and I was just about ready to cut her loose. One night, I set up a little trap. I knew she was planning to meet Derek again. The way she kept texting, the late-night calls, her evasiveness. I waited until she was supposed to be out, then snuck into her phone and set a recording app. I wanted to catch her in the act or at least record her admitting something. I had no illusions that I'd catch her outright confessing, but I needed proof, real proof, to make her understand I wasn't messing around anymore. I remember feeling my stomach tighten as I pressed the button, knowing this could blow up everything. Sure enough, a few hours later, her phone buzzed. I listened as she spoke to Derek, trash talk about me, planning their next resource extraction session, whatever that really meant. She didn't realize I was listening, but I did. Her voice was cold, calculating, almost excited. I could hear the thrill in her voice, like she was gloating about her clandestine affair. That was the moment I knew I had her. I had enough to finally shut her down. The next day, I confronted her again. This time, I played her the recording. Her face turned pale, then twisted into anger. She tried to deny it, of course. "That's not me," she snapped. "You're losing it, Mike." But I just smiled, showing her the evidence I'd collected. Her eyes darted around, trying to find a way out, but I was relentless. I told her that I'd had enough of her lies, her manipulations, her cheating, that I was done pretending everything was fine. I handed her the divorce papers I had prepared, and I told her she could leave that very day if she wanted to keep her secrets. She exploded. Started yelling, calling me controlling, obsessive, a jealous fool. She threw out stories about how I'd been neglecting her, how I was too busy in my world of space tech to pay attention. To her, she said I was the one at fault for everything. The thing is, I knew her game. I knew she was just trying to turn things around, make herself look innocent, but I didn't buy it. I saw through her lies. I knew her tricks now. I told her I didn't care what she said anymore. I just wanted her gone. That was a turning point. She stormed out, screaming all the way. I felt relieved, honestly. It was like a huge weight had been lifted. The house felt emptier without her, but also clearer. I could finally breathe. I sat down, took a deep breath, and stared at the evidence I'd collected. It was surreal. I'd basically caught her red-handed, and now I had leverage. I knew I could make her regret this. I started to plan a revenge that would hit her where it hurt, not just emotionally, but financially and socially too. Over the next couple of weeks, I leaked some of her secrets to a few mutual friends and colleagues, just enough to make her realize that I had the goods on her. I told no one everything, just enough to make her uncomfortable, to keep her on edge. Meanwhile, I also got someone to help me with some legal advice, how to protect myself financially, and what to do if she tried to drag me into some messy court fight. I wasn't going to be naive. I knew she'd try to fight dirty, but I was prepared for that. Honestly, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. I didn't want to be the guy who just walked away, but I also knew I couldn't stay married to a woman who had lied, cheated, and manipulated me for months. I had lost all respect for her, but I had also learned something about myself, how much I valued honesty, loyalty, and trust, and she had destroyed all of that. I wasn't planning to just forgive and forget. No, I wanted her to feel the consequences for what she'd done. I wanted her to see that betraying someone isn't just a small mistake, it's a choice. And she chose to lie, cheat, and manipulate. I'm still in that stage of figuring out what comes next. The divorce is in motion, and I'm slowly trying to rebuild my life. The betrayal hurts, yeah, it still does, but I also feel a strange sense of clarity. I learned the hard way that trusting blindly is dangerous, and I learned that revenge isn't about just hurting someone. It's about making them realize they're not invincible, not untouchable. She thought she could play me, manipulate me, and keep her secrets forever. But I took everything she threw at me and turned it around. That's what I want people to know. Be careful who you trust. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones capable of the deepest betrayal. And when they do, you'd better be ready to fight back. Want me to keep going? The aftermath of everything was a roller coaster I wasn't prepared for. The divorce went through pretty smoothly. Once I had enough evidence, I just presented everything to the lawyer and she agreed we had a strong case. Lisa was furious, of course, trying to spin her lies, calling me crazy and obsessive, but I just shrugged it off. I knew the truth, and that was enough. The thing that hit me hardest was how much I'd loved her, or at least thought I did. Now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish bitch who used me, lied to my face, and screwed around with some guy involved in our space tech dreams. I started to rebuild my life, little by little. I threw myself into work, pouring all my energy into finalizing some new projects at the lab. It helped keep my mind off the mess at home, but honestly, I couldn't ignore the feelings of betrayal and loss that kept creeping in. Every time I saw her name pop up or caught myself thinking about what could have been, I felt that ache. But I also felt a strange sense of relief. I didn't have to pretend to be happy anymore. I could finally be honest with myself. She was never the person I thought she was. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing how much better I felt without her around. No more sneaking around, no more lies, no more constant suspicion. I even reached out to some old friends I'd lost touch with during our marriage. The truth was, I'd been so wrapped up in trying to fix what I thought was broken that I'd neglected my own happiness. Now I was making up for lost time. I focused on my hobbies, working out, reading, catching on some old movies. I also started dating casually, something I never thought I'd do after being married so long, but it helped remind me that life goes on. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been blindsided. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face for so long? I kept asking myself those questions, but I knew I'd never get a full answer. Some part of me still hoped she'd come back, somehow realize what she lost. But deep down, I knew she was too far gone, the damage was done. She was the one who threw everything away, and I wasn't going to chase her or beg for answers anymore. That chapter was closed. One thing I learned through all this is that revenge isn't just about hurting someone else. It's about reclaiming your power. I don't regret gathering evidence or making her face her actions. It was necessary. She thought she could hide her lies forever, but I made sure she knew I wasn't going to be a fool anymore. And honestly, that gave me a kind of strength I didn't have before. I finally felt like I was in control of my life again. Now I'm focusing on me, not her, not the past, just moving forward. The pain still lingers, sure, but I've realized that healing takes time. I've also learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to discover who you really are. And if there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's that no matter how betrayed you feel, you can come out the other side stronger. It's cliché, I know, but it's true. Trust is fragile, and some people will hurt you intentionally. But you're stronger than the pain, and the best revenge is just living your life without them, proving you don't need their lies to be happy. I don't know what's next for me, but I do know I'll be okay. Better than okay, because I finally see clearly now. And I won't let anyone, especially someone I loved and trusted, take that away from me again. If you're going through something similar, my advice is this: get your proof, be relentless, and don't be afraid to walk away. It hurts, yeah, it's supposed to. But that pain will fade, and eventually you'll realize you're stronger than the betrayal. Want me to finish it off? Now looking back, I can honestly say I've learned a lot about trust, about myself, and about the importance of never turning a blind eye to the signs. I used to think that marriage was about loyalty and honesty, but now I see it's also about being vigilant, about protecting yourself from the people who might use and manipulate you. Lisa was a perfect example. She played her game, and I was stupid enough to believe her lies for too long. But I also learned that real strength comes from recognizing when a relationship is beyond saving and having the courage to walk away. Since everything happened, I've become more cautious but also more aware of what I want in life. I don't regret any of my actions. I did what I had to do. I gathered the evidence, I confronted her, I took control of the situation. Because if I hadn't, I might still be living under her shadow, wondering what was real and what wasn't. Now I feel lighter. Not because of the pain, but because I finally took my power back. I've realized that no matter how much you love someone, if they betray you like that, you have to put yourself first. Her lies and manipulations didn't just hurt me, they changed how I see everything. I don't trust easily now and I don't open up like I used to, but that's okay. I've accepted that not everyone deserves your honesty and vulnerability. After all, some people will use that against you. The key is to learn who they are early and to protect yourself. I've become more guarded, wiser, and more careful about who I let into my life, and honestly, I feel free. Free from the weight of her betrayal, free from the lies and manipulations. I know I'll heal and I'll move on. Maybe I'll find someone who truly cares, someone who respects loyalty and honesty. Or maybe I'll just keep focusing on myself for now, that's enough. I just want to say to anyone reading this, don't let betrayal destroy you. Use it as a lesson. Trust yourself more. And never let anyone make you feel small because they're too afraid to face their own flaws. In the end, I'm grateful I caught her, even if it was the hardest thing I've ever done, because it showed me who I really am, someone who can survive, who can stand tall even after being completely shattered. And that's the most important lesson of all. No matter what happens, you're stronger than you think. And sometimes, the only way to truly move on is to face the darkness head-on and come out of it better, wiser, and more resilient. That's what I've done, and I know I'll be fine.